Isaiah 46 through 48. So what would cause an otherwise intelligent person to bow down to a piece of wood? That was a question that Isaiah talked about back in 44:16. He was making fun of the situation of his own day, where he talks about a person cutting an idol out of a tree and then using the bits of wood for, and here's the verse, burning it in the fire. With part of it he cuts meat, or he eats meat. He roasts meat and is satisfied. Yea, he warms himself and says, Aha, I am warm, I have seen the fire. And with the residue he makes a god, even his graven image. He falls down to it and worships it and prays to it and says, Deliver me, for you are my God. Well, that rhetoric continues in 46 verse 1. Bel, now that's the chief deity of Babylon, also called Marduk, bows down. Nebo, that's the son, presumably, of Bel, also a deity in Babylon. Nebo is cowering. Their images are a burden for beasts and cattle. What has happened is they are in a procession on the back of a cart, apparently being borne along by a cow or some kind of beast. The things you would carry in procession are now piled as a burden on tired beasts. They, that's the gods, bowed as well. They could not rescue the burden, and they themselves went into captivity with you. On the other hand, continuing Isaiah here in early 46, I have carried you since birth, supported you since you left the womb. Till you grow old, I will still be the same. When you turn gray, it is I who will carry you. I am the maker, and I will be the bearer. I will carry and rescue you. Well, let's talk some more about idolatry. Again, it's a very important concept in the ancient world, and I think the modern Western world really has trouble understanding how idolatry worked in the Bible. First of all, there is a difference again between the idol and the god, right? They could separate between them. In Deuteronomy 7:25, you shall burn the carved images of their Elohim in the fire. And that's why we have two commandments. The first two, don't have other gods before me, and don't make graven images. And by the way, we have found no evidence of graven images of Yahweh in Israel's history. However, the association between the god and the idol was very, very strong. In fact, in the modern Western world, there is no good analogy, it seems, of how strongly they associated both the spirit and the fashioned piece of metal or wood. One writer likens it to the concept of a dream. Think of a dream. It's very real. Its meaning even can be very real to the person, but when you wake up, you realize it has less staying power than reality itself. So it would be unhelpful to think in terms of this being real and this being unreal in the ancient world. They thought of them both as real, but in degrees of reality. So that would be more likely how they understood this. Now, what caused, in fact, Genesis 35:4, you start to talk about this as the God. So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods which were in their hands. You see the association then of the deity with the idol to the point where you can call the idol your deity. That would have been common. Well, let's again think in the ancient terms of their mindset. How could this association be so strong? Remember that when they cut the piece of wood, it was wood, until they took it to a local village priest. And here we go outside the Bible to the practices of the ancient world. You would take it to a local village priest. He would pray over that deity, or I'm sorry, that piece of wood, for example, and invite the beneficence of the deity into that wood. And it was called the opening of the mouth ceremony. So that when you went back the next day and retrieved your idol, it housed the very reality, shall we say, of the deity. And you can see then why the love of a deity would turn quickly into the love of your idol. You would take care of it. You would feed it. You would make it very beautiful. And if you lost it, you'd make another one. If it was destroyed, you'd make another one. Many idols could represent one deity, of course, because again, they could separate in their minds between these two, but the association again was very, very strong. So this is where Isaiah's mockery of the idol is very important. He has realized, and this is just a trajectory of time in the life of the biblical story, where the prophet realizes what has happened, and again, this can go way back in time, but they are the ones that really do it mostly. Isaiah and Jeremiah. They will mock the idol because they want the understanding that this is not real, but your love of that unreal or that less than real ideal has influenced your love of the Spirit as well. So mockery is on this level, warning is always on this level. And I would never recommend what really has happened in the modern reading of our Bible. We have read the mockery of the idol as the meaning that the God does not exist, which of course would have been a shock to them. They did not think that way. So we have in fact Isaiah 46:7 in our reading today. This is Isaiah mocking the idols. They must carry them on their backs and transport them. When they put the idol down, it stands. It does not budge from its place. If they cry out to it, it does not answer. It cannot save them from their distress. Well, how do we argue for the reality then of the God and the falsity or the non-reality, shall we say, of the idol? Can we do that consistently? I would say certainly. And just remember our story, Psalm 8:5. We are created below Elohim. Genesis 1:26. We are created in the image and likeness of plural Elohim. Psalm 82:1. God dwells in the midst of and judges among plural Elohim. The number of times that we have seen in the story that we have been warned against worshiping them is almost innumerable. In short, the Bible flatly assumes the reality of Elohim. And this becomes a separate discussion, that is, the idols. What, of course, has happened over time is that we have reduced or almost turned gods into angels, which is a very innocuous term in modern theology, and by that means we have dismissed their importance. Over time, again, then, let me just say this in conclusion. I think what's happened over time is once we have divested the Bible or the biblical story of the reality of Elohim, we wonder what is the problem that God wants to solve. In other words, if we take the real problem of the biblical story out, that is the worship of other gods, we have to go looking for another problem, right, to make the biblical story have meaning. And what almost every denomination has done, and by that I mean Catholic, Protestant, even Jewish traditions in many ways, once you lose this, you have to go looking for a problem. And of course, what has replaced that problem, what has become the shiny object in the life of almost every denomination, is the concept of sin and the handling of sin. But again, remember how that is not the main issue of the biblical story as much as the reality and love of God's is.